When you kind of find your alignment and you find what you do, and if you do it really well, these things will come to you.
Welcome to Hey Awesome Girl. I'm your host, Tivi Jones. I'm founder and CEO of the seven-figure company, Hey Awesome Girl. I'm dog mom to Olivia, the cutest little dog on the planet. And it is my mission to empower the most marginalized, celebrate women, all women, and amplify BIPOC and queer voices. Every week, we interview amazing bosses from every walk of life to discover how we as a community can increase our confidence, close racial and gender wealth gaps, and provide a means of true freedom for all girls around the world. Today, you will meet Amanda Munz, who's the founder of the Fashion Foundation. Amanda worked in the fashion industry and witnessed brands producing an excess of samples, an excess of merchandise that often ended up in the garbage. So as a solution to that problem, at 23 years old, Amanda started the Fashion Foundation, which serves as a platform for designers and brands to donate their products while knowing that their merchandise will help local students in need. I know you will feel empowered watching this episode, and I'm excited for you to see it. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk with you. I know we were, just prepping, and I was saying that my teammate Demi has been talking about you for a while. So I'm a little bit familiar with what you do, but if you can just introduce yourself for the audience.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Amanda Munz. I am an entrepreneur, the founder of the Fashion Foundation. I am also a creative consultant, and I am also an adjunct professor. So I am all over the place.
Oh my
Casual.
gosh. Right. Casual, just
Casual.
casual. I'm a
Casual, have three
professor.
jobs. Have three jobs. That's like what it comes down to.
I want to dig into all of that, but I'm assuming you didn't start as an entrepreneur and as a business owner and as a professor and you do all these things. Like, how did you start your career?
So it's funny. I feel like my life has kind of gone in these like ebbs and flows of different people. So when I was younger, I was a tomboy. I feel like I was like, I wore the same sweatpants every single day, the same t-shirt every single day. And then I feel like I'm a very like artistic, creative type of thinker. And in high school, my fashion and my style changed and it became a little more girly. And I really started to get into fashion. So I was really lucky and really blessed because in my high school, we were actually allowed to go to almost like a trade school.
Mm.
So for 11th and 12th grade, I basically left my high school for half of the day and I went to a trade school for fashion design and fashion merchandising.
Wow.
So yeah, it's awesome that my school even offered it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where my love for fashion, I really think, came to fruition. I learned how to sew, I learned how to do, basic merchandising. And then because of that, I actually landed my first internship in fashion at 16 years old, which
Oh,
is like
wow.
wild because my friends were like, serving ice cream in the ice cream shop. And I was like
Mm.
sitting in on buying meetings with buyers and things like that. So that was kind of my head start. And then I went to FIT after that. And that's really where I started to kind of get into the fashion industry more seriously.
Were there things about the fashion industry that you assumed before you started, and there are things that you, like, really stark things that you learned by getting into it?
I mean, I think everyone envisions fashion to be like glamorous and beautiful and it's fun and it's
Mm-hmm.
colorful and it's all these things. But then when you get into it, it is all of those things, but it's a lot of work. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was the coolest person in the world at 16, 17 years old, going to this corporate office, a fashion showroom. And as an
Yeah.
intern, I dressed the part and I was like really a part of it. And then as I
Mm-hmm.
got further and further into it, I almost felt like I don't know if I fit in here. I don't know if this is my vibe or this is kind of my
Mm-hmm.
calling or my career path. So I learned that as I kind of got into it. I still love the industry, but it's
Yeah.
different than what you envision it to be sometimes.
What about it didn't align with who you were?
Wow, no one's ever asked me that. So that's so funny. Um, I think as I got older, as many of us do, we find we're more comfortable in our own skin. And now,
Mm-hmm.
as I got older, I mean, you're seeing it right now. I wear basically a black t shirt and black pants every single day. That is my staple. And, in the fashion industry, it's you get dressed up and, you stay
Mm-hmm.
on trend and you do all these things and you do your hair. And you think about your outfit the night before, and I did all those things, and it used to stress me out so much. I would have,
Mm,
like, anxiety thinking of what I was going to wear the next day to impress, the people around you, and I think I've learned
yeah.
that's not me. I'm casual,
Mm-hmm.
people have said I'm a very chill person, my students call me chill, and I've learned that I'm in the industry, I do really well in the industry, but maybe I'm not
Yeah.
that person that is, trendy or stays up to date with that stuff. I actually hate shopping, which is so funny that I run a store.
So you're in the fashion industry, you realize there's a little bit of misalignment there. So, then what happened that took you in this new entrepreneurial direction?
Yep, so I went to FIT all 4 years. I had internships in fashion. What I was seeing at 21 years old, maybe in my even earlier than that, is and this was 10 plus years ago before sustainable
Hmm.
fashion was really spoken about. So when you walk into any type of fashion company, every single
Hmm.
fashion company, I would say probably, there is a lot of merchandise in our offices that are being prepared for the next season or seasons to come.
Mm.
So there's an
Hmm.
entire team behind the fashion industry where, when you walk in a store right now, you see a light blue denim pair of pants. There was many people and many kind of corrections that went into making that pair of pants before somebody signed
Mm.
off and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to now produce that and make tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces of that one item." So
Right.
for the simple term, I guess, for a sample is the industry perfects all of the pieces that you see. When
Hmm.
you're working with factories, the design team might say, "This is what I want, and I want it in 5 different colors." The factory is
Hmm.
gonna send it to us, and they're gonna say, "Okay, I really like this shade of green, that's perfect. I don't love this
Hmm.
shade of blue, at least needs to be a little bit lighter. Red is
Hmm.
great, let's drop the white." And so there's a process that goes behind, creating these garments. Those pieces are often like one-off pieces, and that's why we call them a
Mm.
sample because it might
Hmm.
not ever go into production. So really all of these things that you see in an office or a fashion company's office is a lot of perfecting our pieces.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
why there's so much because think about it, how many pieces does each brand produce each season every single year? It's
Right.
a lot.
Yeah.
I just remember as
Mm.
like a 20-year-old being like, why do we have all this merchandise in our offices? Like, why are we throwing them out? Why are we like, what is all of this stuff and what can I do for that? We're always going to have all these samples are not going to go away. We need to make samples in the fashion industry. But what can I do for these companies to make it easy for them to donate them to put those
Hmm.
one off pieces to good use? So that's kind of the
Hmm.
backstory of it.
Wow. And so what then came of that?
So I was 20 years old in these offices, and I was like, what am I going to do? I just went to school for fashion, college and high school, and I decided senior year of FIT, junior senior year of FIT, I am going to figure out how to start a nonprofit in the fashion industry, and I'm going to get designers to donate this stuff. And like that, that
Hmm.
was the only thought I had. And I told my parents, I'm not going to get a job, even though I had job offers. I'm going to go start a charity in the fashion industry. And they were like, what? You're gonna do what?
I bet they were.
Like, what?
Let's say what now?
Yeah, like, you just went, "Okay, okay." So, I went on I was a fashion girl. All I knew was fashion at that point. So then I went on to Baruch to get my Master's of Public Administration to learn the fundamentals of nonprofits because I knew fashion,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know
Hmm.
nonprofit, and I blended them together. So
Hmm.
in Baruch, I really had this epiphany of like, "Okay, I'm getting designers to do this. I'm gonna get
Hmm.
them to donate these samples. I am going to sell them and customers can buy them, and I am going to use that money to help local kids."
Mm.
And that was really how it started.
Wow. First of all, that's amazing. I love that you took a risk, right? Like you had all this experience. The safe path would have been just go get a job.
Yep,
You
get a job.
decided to do like something related, but on a little bit of a different path. How has your company, the Fashion Foundation, evolved since you started it?
So it's funny, I took the risk, but I felt like I had a safety net at that point in my life, right? I was
Mm.
22, 23 years old. I was living with my
Mm-hmm.
parents. And, I always worked part time so that I could pay my bills and do all those things. But I felt like do it now or I'm never going to do it because once you get
Right.
a quote unquote full-time job or a real job, it's much
Mm-hmm.
harder to start something. So I was like, let me
Yeah.
try and let's see what happens. So while all my friends were getting jobs, I was like, nope, I'm going to figure this out and let's try this. So my aunt had offered up her basement. She said, "You can use my basement until you get on your feet with, the
Mhm.
fashion foundation." I started with one clothing rack. I called my friends, I called my family, and I said, "Clean out your closets." And they donated, pieces from their closets, and that's how I built my first website.
What?
And one clothing rack. And now, I mean, you can see behind
I
me,
love
a
that.
lot of merchandise. A
All the
lot.
good stuff behind you. Yeah. I
Like,
love
yeah,
that you mentioned that because I love helping other people start their own consulting companies. That's my part of my personal mission to empower more women to have their own consulting companies. And one of the main things I teach is start with your most supportive audience and starting with your family and friends to, because you can get some quick wins when you start with people who want to support your vision.
absolutely. And then it's like I think you quickly also realize that that safety net of people are great and they help you get off the ground. And then
Yep.
when you start to actually get other people who are strangers supporting you
Mm-hmm.
and calling you, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, like people are interested in me who are not my parents.
Yeah.
Like people are buying who are not
Yeah.
my cousins. And that's, like, so
Right.
fun. That's, like,
Mm-hmm.
the coolest part. I remember to this day when I got my first order from a stranger, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, is he a serial killer? Like, who is he?" I was like I was like, "It's time to get a PO box. I can't be putting my address on things." It, like, makes you
Uh-huh.
level up really quickly, but it's the
Yeah.
coolest thing when you start to get strangers who support you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. So started off with one rack. Now you
Mhm.
got a whole situation happening. How does it work? Is it e-commerce? Like, is it a location? Talk to me about the process.
So at this point, we are fully e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
COVID changed the game for fashion and shop, so we went fully e-commerce. We started in an office, in a home office,
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce, in my aunt's basement, until the point where we had so much stuff in her basement. She was like, "You're done here. You have to go like get a real space."
Yeah.
So then we evolved into, I called it a showroom. People would come by
Mm-hmm.
appointment only, and you'd be able to shop in person in a little e-commerce. And that's really evolved over the years. Now, where we're at, I'm so happy with a fully e-commerce site because people around the world can shop. You don't have to maintain a store. Everyone always says you should get a store. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I don't want a store. Like, I like what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Yeah.
So we're fully e-commerce. The I guess the whole kind of circle of the Fashion Foundation is designers donate pieces that they don't want. We get one box from some companies, we get 300 boxes from some companies. Designers are donating all this excess product. We put it
Mm-hmm.
on our website up to
Mm-hmm.
98% off the cost, off the
Mm-hmm.
retail price, and then we sell it to consumers around the world. With that money, we basically buy supplies and school supplies for local underprivileged kids. So it's a win-win for everybody, but it's really like it's an
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce site fully funded by designers giving us their stuff, which helps local kids, which is like the cherry on top.
Okay, so local to New York, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
All New York schools.
We talked about, your parents and family and friends supported you initially. Now you have a whole warehouse, fully functional e-commerce store. I know that you've been featured all over the place with the Fashion Foundation. But was there like a breakthrough moment or besides the first stranger making an order, was there a moment that stands out for you like, oh, we made it. Like this is it.
There's, like, a couple along the way that I do feel like I've had those, like, "oh" moments, but I
Mhm.
also wanna put this on the record and on the radar because you kind of said it,
Yeah.
I had help from my family and friends, but I wanna put this out there that, like, I don't come from money, and I'm very transparent about that because a lot of
Mhm.
people do associate nonprofits and charities with
Mm.
wealth.
That's a good
That was
point.
not the
Yeah.
case for me. And, like,
Mhm.
nobody gave me funding, nobody gave me
Yeah.
a dollar, my dad did not
Yeah.
introduce me to any CEOs at companies, I didn't have any connection, so I really wanna put that
Yeah.
out there that, like, my friends and family helped me on, like, the
Mhm.
smallest scale level. I started my
Yeah.
bank account with $5, like, that was
Mhm.
it. So I do wanna put
Yeah.
that out there because it could get swayed into, charities, money, and
Yeah.
all that, so I started
Thank
super
you for that
scrappy.
distinction.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, of course, and I tell everyone that.
Yeah.
So I hustled to kind of get where I am, and the
Mhm.
first, I would say, oh moment was we had a handbag company that I started networking. I learned really quick you
Uh-huh.
have to network, you have to get your name out there to really build your business. And I would
Mhm.
go to events many times a week, commute to the city to go to events. And one of the ones that I went to, I had connected with somebody who worked for a handbag company, and a couple weeks later, they had reached out and they were like, "Hey, we have some handbags. We want to donate. We're moving
Mhm.
offices. We'd like to donate them to you." And I was like, "Great! Like, when can I come?" They're like, "Tomorrow." And I was like, "I'll be there."
Yeah.
And I went to this handbag company, and they filled my car with hundreds of pocketbooks. I mean, I remember they were putting them in the glove compartment. They were putting it on like the side door. They were stuffing
Not the
wallets,
glove compartment.
like anywhere they could find a spot in this car. They
They're
put
like, "Do you got a
handbags.
spare tire? Oh,
Yeah,
it's empty back there. Let's put."
like, I remember leaving there being like, "1, holy, I just got my first designer donation, and 2, if I get pulled over, they are literally gonna think, like, I robbed a store."
Right, right.
It was, like, embarrassing, and that was the first, like, "Oh my gosh, like, I am
Yeah.
onto something," because I had my
Uh-huh.
first company donate, and then it trickled. I would say the next kind of "oh my gosh" moment was when Rebecca Minkoff and I connected at an
Mm.
event,
Mhm.
and Rebecca herself started, knowing what we did, and they started to donate.
Mm.
And her team sent me so many pieces, so many boxes that I was physically out of space at my aunt's house, and that's when she was like, "You're done. You have to go get a space." They were shipping, I'm not exaggerating, like 10, 20, 30 boxes to my front lawn. And my mom would be like, "What are you doing? Like, we
Oh
cannot
my
do this. The neighbors
gosh.
are watching."
Yeah. It starts getting
But
embarrassing, like.
yeah, like, she was like, "They're gonna rob us, like, what are you doing?"
Mm,
And that was really these moments where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm onto something. These companies are actually giving me their product. They're giving, like,
yeah.
a no-name small charity." We are not a big name at that point. We're still not, a
Mhm.
huge name. They were giving us their samples, and they were giving us hundreds of samples at a time.
I love that so much. I love the entrepreneurial journey. I so appreciate like your distinction of, yo, I didn't come from money. Like I had support, but it wasn't like nobody wrote me a blank check, you
No,
know?
I would love
Um,
that if
right, that would
anyone
have been
did that.
great.
Yeah,
Like
that would've been wonderful.
similar experience, and it makes me think too, because I grew up in North Carolina. We didn't have money, like very open with that as well. But I'm curious from a mindset perspective as an entrepreneur, like how have you had to evolve your mindset over the years from when you were like first starting out like super scrappy to now? What's that like adjusting with the different periods of how the business is growing?
I almost feel like I'm honestly still the same type of person, and I've always just been, if I want something done, I'm gonna do it. And I remember, like,
Mhm,
when I started it, I needed to find a lawyer, right? You need to find a lawyer and
mhm,
accountant. And
mhm.
the first thing I did was, like, I just started to cold call lawyers. I, like, would Google lawyers on Long Island, and the first person that
Yeah,
I reached out to was a massive law firm. I had no idea. And a partner at the law firm helped me because he was like, "You remind me of my daughter. Like, I love you. Let me help you for
oh,
free."
I love that.
And to this day, I feel like that's how I am. I have a little more help now, but, like, I don't feel like I'm above anybody, and, like, if I want something
Uh-huh.
done, I'm gonna do it. If that means staying up till 11 o'clock at night to make an email blast for the next day, like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna do it myself. So I
yeah,
almost feel like I'm the same type of person kind of all the way through.
yeah.
I'd like to think I'm, like, a humble type of person, and I'm not, like, super flashy or things like that, and when things happen, I talk about them, but
Mhm.
I don't talk about them beforehand. I don't feel like I brag about them, and I feel like I've always been like that.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to go back to what you're saying about like reaching out to the lawyer because I think sometimes we're afraid. And I think this is going to go into like a discussion of networking because you mentioned networking earlier. And I definitely understand the power of networking. But I think that I know I felt this when I was starting. Like, there's fear. Like, oh my gosh, I have to like talk about myself. I have to like meet new people. Like, I'm an introvert. Like, I want to stay home. Were you fearless in that way, or did you like have tactics to help you overcome maybe some of that fear that may hold certain people back from networking?
Honestly, looking back, I feel like I was a little bit fearless, but also a little bit lucky, and I don't know if that they run kind of hand in hand because like I said, the
Mm,
first lawyer I called, like, just panned out, and so I don't know if it was luck or fate or whatever, but it almost made it,
mm,
like, a little easier to keep going. And
yeah.
then with the networking part, in the beginning, it's super scary. It's really scary to walk into a room, an empty a room full of people that you don't know anybody in and quote unquote network. And I
Yeah.
used to like beg my friends to come with me to events and they would come.
Yeah.
And then what I found is you just end up talking to your friend the whole time
Mm,
and you don't actually
mhm.
go out. So then I guess fearless of me, I started to going to networking events by myself.
Mhm.
And that worked because you are forced to really get out of your comfort zone. I'm like an introvert, extrovert, it depends on the situation. In a
Yeah.
business situation, I'm an extrovert. I will walk into that room now and talk to people. In my social life, I'm definitely more of an introvert. Um, but I definitely learned to kind of be fearless and just go into that room. Not everyone is a win. Not every event is a win. Not everything you do is a win. But
Mhm.
like, try it.
Yeah. So, staying on the topic of networking, are there specific tactics or strategies that people who want to get into networking that they can try? Like go to questions or things like that?
I would say first, look at all the events happening. I think it is a little harder now because we're talking, this was 2014, 2015. It was a little easier.
Mhm.
There was a lot more, open type of events. Find the type of events you want to go in. Find the rooms that you want to be in. Like I remember looking
Yeah.
for fashion events and looking for business events, young professional events, because that's kind of like
Mhm.
your tribe and you feel a little bit more
Mhm.
comfortable.
Mhm.
And then I think one of my tips or tricks would be when you walk into a room and there's people standing together talking, it's okay to go up to them and be like, "Hey, can I join in on your conversation?"
Love that.
Usually, they don't say no,
Yeah.
but you start to also feel the vibe, right? If you're not blending, you're not vibing, it's okay also to be like, "It was so nice to meet you guys, I'm gonna go get a
Mhm.
drink or I'm gonna go do this." And then you move on
Yep.
to the next one.
Yep.
And some people actually you'll vibe with and it'll work and you'll have a conversation and it leads to something. And other people, you're maybe just not gonna mesh and that's
Yeah.
okay.
I love that advice because I think that takes the pressure out for some people because I always talk about resistance. Like if you hold so tight to this idea that everything has to work out and it has to work out exactly how I imagine it in my head, you're gonna make yourself miserable. And trust me, I'm speaking from
Mhm.
experience. I've done that before a lot in my life, maybe just yesterday. But if you go into it and give yourself permission for things not to work out and know that you have the power to try again and try again in a new way, I think that just makes life, definitely business, so much easier.
Totally, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, or a trait that I have, but it sounds like you're a little similar in it. I tend to go into every experience, like, ready for it to underperform or ready for it to not be as good as I think it's gonna be.
I need to talk to my therapist about that. Like, girl, is this an issue?
That's why I'm like, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but I've learned you become less disappointed when you think of it that way, because I remember going
Mhm.
into all these things being like, "This is gonna change the game. This is gonna be the best event I went to. This is gonna be
Mhm.
the best
Mhm.
press thing that's gonna happen."
Yep.
And it never is. It
Mhm.
never, like, your expectations are never met when you go in that way. When you
Yeah.
go in kind of thinking like it is what it is, let's see what happens, like maybe it's the best thing,
Mhm.
maybe it's the
Mhm.
worst thing. And then
Yep.
if it's good, you're like, this is great. And if it bombs, you're not disappointed. This might have been a
Exactly.
breakthrough. This is like a
Right.
therapy session. This is a breakthrough.
Right here, right here. I'm gonna tell my therapist I'm good for this week. Ooh, I already have my
They'll
session.
underestimate and you will be fine.
Right. I do want to talk about bombs for a second. So you can share as much detail as you feel comfortable sharing. Were there any like really, really rough or low points along your journey as an entrepreneur? And I really want to dig in specifically what those low points taught you.
Yes. I would say probably the lowest point of my career was when I opened our New York City showroom. There was an incident that happened in the showroom with the radiator, and it destroyed everything. Every piece of merchandise, every post-it, every stamp, everything that you could imagine, we lost in basically a day. And it's
Oh my
almost like
God.
comparable to being a fire in your house or your office or
Mhm.
wherever it is. Everything's
Mhm.
gone in a
Yeah.
day. I mean, it was the hardest day of my life. Truthfully, I mean, I just remember crying for like days and weeks and just rebuilding this organization.
Mm.
In the moment, it's awful. It's traumatic.
Yeah.
When you get past it, I always feel like it feels so much better on the other side. Looking
Mhm.
back
Yeah.
makes you stronger. It really shows you who's there for you, who's not. It shows you where you need to be or where you don't need to be. And it really does teach you a lot
Mhm.
even when it's awful in those moments.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently with a friend, and we were talking about our shared desire to over prepare for things. And I think sometimes, at least I'll speak for myself, it comes from a place of experiencing really, really hard traumas. And so, like, never wanting to be like caught off guard in that way. But I also think that can sometimes, at least for me personally, be a toxic trait. And so I think the hard thing, and you let me know what you think about this. I think the tricky thing about situations like that is not that you want them to happen again, but it teaches you that you can deal with hard. And
Mhm.
even if you're not expecting it, you've never dealt with it before in the past, but you figure out a way to move forward. And so I'm wondering, just like we talked about, go-to networking strategies, or business strategies, or just like the way that you like comport yourself in your business, are there ways that you kind of go about life besides the not expecting things to be amazing, that help you deal with crises like that?
I feel like everyone is so different, and, like, I feel like the blunt truth is, like, running a business is hard, working for somebody is hard, life is hard, like, hard things happen.
It's all
Like,
hard.
life is
Hmm.
yeah, like, life is not easy. And, again, this is like a therapy session, but I'm the type of person where I'm like, "Okay, if everything's going really, really great, you've got all these press things and everything's and you're on top, like, something's gonna
Yeah.
fall." And then when you're at
Yeah.
the bottom, you're like, "Wait, it could only go up from here, right?"
I
But I'm
mean,
the type of
yeah.
person where, like, I expect a bad thing to happen because you're going to have bad things happen. It's
Hmm.
inevitable. So I feel like for coping and getting through it is like everyone's different. My coping mechanism is like I shut down and I need to like be by myself in my room and listening to
Hmm.
music or watching TV and a good
Hmm.
shower cry. Like then I'm usually good after the shower
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
But if somebody else might be going out and socially and talking about it and a therapy session
Hmm.
and working through
Hmm.
it and like
Hmm.
everybody has their way and my way is kind of like shut down, get through it how I need to do, and like next day is a new day.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like your advice is know yourself and figure out what refills you so you can move forward.
Absolutely, and like I said, I am now more comfortable in my own skin now. It took me 30 years to get to where I am now to feel so comfortable in my skin, where
Yeah.
other people might not feel the same way when they need to heal or get through these hard times, and however anybody needs to cope, like, do it, that's your
Hmm.
way. Just own it and be okay with that and know that you're not everybody else, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm okay saying that now.
I love that. And it makes me think about like our future, right? And so you're a professor. So you help shape and mold the future. Talk to me about the experience of being an adjunct professor.
It is a wild ride, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I started teaching at a college at 28 years old, which is crazy to me that they even allowed me to teach at 28 years old. My favorite part about teaching is that my classes, I kind of call them like life lessons that no one taught me. And so my
Mm.
classes are about like, how do you, right? Like everyone should take this class.
Period.
That's like my business class in the future that I've like many people have been like, "You need to teach that." How do you make a creative resume? Not a Microsoft Word size 12 Times New Roman resume. I'm talking like, how do you make an eye-catching resume to make you stand
Yeah.
out from the other 100 people? How do you walk
Mhm.
into a room and network with somebody? How do you get onto a
Mhm.
podcast with somebody that you've never met before in your life and have a great organic conversation? It's like
Yeah.
no one taught us these things.
Right.
And I wish they did. So now I'm so happy because I get to teach my students all of these life lessons that I've learned along the way. So, it's not like a textbook that I'm reading from, it's life experiences and what I kind of see in the future and what we're doing in the industry. And
Mhm.
it's heartfelt. And I think my students see that and they enjoy that because it's
Yeah.
very real and it's very honest and it's real
Mm.
life.
I love that. I have a girlfriend. We actually talked when she graduated from college. She asked one of her mentors, who I believe was a professor, to write her a syllabus for adulthood, because she's like, I graduated from college. I've been operating using a syllabus for my whole life, basically. Please help me understand adulthood by writing me a syllabus. And I'm just like, that is brilliant. I didn't get one of those, but I wish I would have
Right.
gotten one. So maybe that can be part of Professor Munn's
I
work.
love that. I love that. I mean, it also comes down to the type of person that you are.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell right off the bat, you and I are, entrepreneurs. You're out there, you're a go-getter, you're doing what you love. Not everybody is comfortable in their skin and doing that just yet. So when you
Mm-hmm.
have somebody being like, this is how you walk into a room, or this is how you compose a cold email, I
Mm-hmm.
learned it myself, but now I get to tell people how to do it. And when I
Yeah.
hear from them being like, I got my first internship because of all the things you taught me, like,
Yeah.
what more can I ask for? That's, like, the skills that I've acquired that I get to pass
Right.
on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I also think I know when I started my business, so I started consulting in 2010 and I started my professional career in like 2004. Like Google wasn't popping like it was when I first started working. And so I just remember many things I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like I could, look it up in a encyclopedia or, I could Google it, but it wasn't like millions of options of what I could do. Nowadays, it's like, where do I start? Everybody has an opinion online. Everybody is saying, do that this way. No, do it this way. And so when someone you trust, like you are saying, this is how you make a creative resume, here's a start, at least they can try that and then get data on how it works, how it might not work, what it feels like to them to do it, and then they can adjust as they go rather than starting from zero.
Absolutely, and then the flip side to that is, like, if you don't have a mentor, or you don't have a college professor who's teaching you these things, it's okay to Google it. I That's how I started my
Absolutely.
businesses, right? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
remember
Mm-hmm.
Googling how to start a nonprofit, and the steps were there.
I literally went to the library and went to Barnes and Noble and got books. I still have, there's like a girl's guide to starting your own business, like that I got decades ago. It's still in my living room to this day.
I love that. It's like you're self-taught. I feel like I'm self-taught too, but people would come to me and they would say like, "Oh, you have a lawyer. Who's your lawyer? Can you introduce me?" And I'd be like, "No." Like that's my contact that I worked really hard
Mm-hmm.
to, and everybody asks for things. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody asks for something in business. So do
Yeah.
I. It's just human nature. But I think people also need to learn that my lawyer or my accountant, whoever, might not be the right fit for your business. So start to Google
Correct.
and find
Yeah.
somebody who fits. And I think people are afraid to do that. But I think
Yeah,
people
that's
have
true.
to, especially if you want to start a business.
That's true. You're absolutely right. Having somewhere to start to so you can start getting data is essential, but also having options is also
Hmm.
good. I think what I want to get at is I want people to avoid the analysis paralysis and just start. Like I tell people in my Boss Squad program all the time because they want to worry themselves into solving the problem. And I'm like, you're not going to solve the problem by thinking about it. You're going to solve the problem when you actually attempt something and then you have data on what actually happened and then you can pivot and actually solve the problem that way.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember writing business plans and, you're doing Excel sheets and you're
Yeah.
forecasting the future, and, like, I haven't
Right.
looked at them since I started. So,
So
try
real.
it, do it, and then also, like I said, I worked part-time basically up until the point where I was like, "Okay, I think I can do this full time." It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to kind of find your passion project and, do that, but also, like, we have bills to pay. You have to be able to live too. So, I sold
Yeah.
dresses at Bloomingdale's while I was starting my company, and I worked at a gym, during grad school. So, it's okay to kind of have these side hustles while you have a
Mm-hmm.
part-time job so you can run them simultaneously. And I think that alleviates the worry factor because you have money to kind of help you. So I always kind of say that to people too, don't be ashamed to do that on the
Right.
side.
Yeah. And, entrepreneurship doesn't have to look one way. What I love about these days, I was actually in an Uber going to the airport a few months ago, and the driver, she's an entrepreneur, she's a writer, and she's like, I drive Uber first thing in the morning and in the evenings. And during the day, I work on my business. I'm like, that's amazing. I wish they would have had Uber when I started my business because she had her schedule down where she was like, all right,
Mhm.
I'm going to get this money. Then I'm going to work on my business. Then I'm going to get this money. Like book in my day with money and then make sure I'm, working towards my vision.
And that's amazing. Like that's beautiful. It's like a safety net. That's what I feel like it is. It's a little bit of a
Hmm.
safety net for yourself.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, let's talk about the future of fashion. And I particularly want to know how does your company fit into the future of fashion when you envision the future?
So We are a sustainable nonprofit. We're recycling all this stuff. We've recycled over 200,000 pounds of designer merchandise.
Uh-huh.
I don't necessarily like align ourselves in the sustainable sector because the people doing it are true experts. I mean, we're just saying
Hmm.
to designers, donate whatever you have. We will recycle them. So I feel like
Yeah.
we're in the sustainable fashion sector. I don't consider myself like on the forefront of it or, speaking on it, but I do think samples are always going to be in fashion. We need them
Hmm.
to produce to almost reduce the waste by
Yeah.
creating samples. So I do think that we're a part of the future in that sense, and I want
Hmm.
designers to feel okay donating their samples. I
Hmm.
know that some brands and some companies will never donate their samples, and that's okay because other companies and other brands and other designers will to
Yeah.
allow us to keep going. I think I've maybe helped designers be okay with the fact of saying, you know what, we have 400 boxes of samples, they're going to good use instead of throwing them out or destroying them. We're going to give them to this charity, and they are online and they are visible, and that
Mm.
wasn't really a thing 15 years ago. It was almost like hush hush and it was quiet.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool that secondhand and reusable and recycled and all that is happening. It's going to continue to happen, and we are a part of that component on a small scale.
That's beautiful. Um, so obviously I know as an entrepreneur, sometimes work can consume your life. Please correct me if you have a different experience.
Nope. Nope.
Amanda's like, nope, that tracks. So, with that in mind, at Hey Awesome Girl, we try to add more pleasure, ease, and abundance to our lives. We talk a lot about those specific words: pleasure, ease, and abundance. How are you cultivating those in your life?
I don't know if I am. Let's see. Let's see. I don't know. Here's the thing though. I love to work. I
Yeah.
love the fashion foundation. Like I love what I do. I don't dread going to work every day. So I feel like that almost allows me to have a little bit more of like ease and pleasure in my day to day because I actually love what I do. I have learned that I do have to have a little bit of balance where if I want to go away for a weekend, it's okay. If I want to not come in on a Monday, it's okay. I will then
Hmm.
make it up somehow else. So I'm a terrible example at, like, balancing, but I really think that's because I love to work. That's my
Yeah.
hobby. That's terrible. It's actually terrible that I said that. It's my hobby,
Wait,
though.
but why is that? Why is that terrible?
I mean, because you do have to have the balance, right? You have to have things that you enjoy and that you love, and you have to decompress, but I actually really enjoy going to work for a full day, sometimes 10 hours a day, and then, going to the gym after, and then going home and doing it all the next day. I don't
Yeah.
mind that.
I think that's the beauty of building a business that you love. And I think it kind of speaks to our conversation earlier about it's okay to have a side hustle because I think when you, and I did this, like when you just quit your job and you're going to start your business and you have no way of bringing in revenue, sometimes you feel like you have to take whatever client, whatever project that you want to take because your livelihood is depending on it. But if you really go about it in an intentional way, and thankfully I've corrected course over the past dozen years, you can really build something that's true to your spirit. So, yes, I do think pleasure, ease, and abundance is an essential part of life. But if you already just inherently have a lot of that baked in to what you do, I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I'm a simple person when it comes down to it, as you're kind of talking about this. And I feel like, I enjoy going out with friends, but I also just enjoy being, with my mom watching a movie. And that could be my Friday
Yeah.
night. And I think I'm okay with that, except when
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool, but I'm also single still. And like, my mom loves to say my youth is slipping away, which is like, great. Thanks, mom.
Mama,
Thanks,
you
mom.
does she know my parents? Cause they've been talking.
So sometimes you're in the back of your head where you're like, wait, okay, so it's Friday and I'm watching a movie with my mom. Like maybe I should be out mingling and socialing, but like I actually just really
Just
enjoy a
get rid of
simple
these
life.
shoulds. No
But
shoulds. No shoulds.
it creeps in every once in a while. I feel like I
Hmm.
really am a simple person. I like fun things. I do it when I want to, but I'm a simple person.
Amanda, I have loved this. I'm gonna let my therapist know that I'm good for
You're
this
good.
week. We don't have to talk. But for folks who want to learn more about you and your work and your company, where can they find you online?
So follow the Fashion Foundation on Instagram and Facebook. We're also on TikTok now. But the Fashion Foundation, if you Google us, thefashionfoundation.org, that's my number one baby.
Awesome. Anywhere else you want to highlight while I have you?
One thing that we didn't touch about that I think is kind of a little important is we talked about I have the Fashion Foundation. We talked about
Mhm.
the that I'm an adjunct professor. I also do. I'm a creative consultant, and this
Mhm.
happened because brands and companies for years would come to me and they would be like, "Hey, who's doing your social media? Who's doing your email marketing?" And I would be
Mhm.
like, "Me and me, like me."
Yeah.
And it kind of
Us.
evolved into yeah, right. Like you're looking at it. And they would be like, "Can you do hours?" And for many years, I actually said no, and I was like, "No, I have the
Mhm.
Fashion Foundation, I'm working on that."
Yeah.
And up until about a couple years ago, I started saying yes, and now I say yes to
Oh,
things.
awesome.
And
Good for
now
them.
I do this for other brands and companies, and I want people to know that when you kind of find your alignment and you find what you
Mhm.
do, and if you do it really well, these things will come to you. And I kind of
Mhm.
let
Mhm.
let it happen. I don't outreach for things. I don't apply for many things. If you're good at what you do, people will find you, and I think jobs will come to you. So I just want that to be known that like all of these things I also have now, I feel like they come to me, and it's
Yeah.
because I've built the Fashion Foundation and have done all these things. So
Yeah.
let things happen, and things will come to you.
Oh my gosh. Dropping gems and bars until the very end. Where can they find out more about your creative consulting?
My website, I have my own personal website, amandamunz.com, and that's where you can kind of see a little bit about me, what I've done, where I've been, and places I've been featured, and it's all kind of balled into one.
Okay, perfect. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved our conversation, and I think that it will empower and inspire so many people. So thank you so much for being
Oh,
here.
thank you so much for having me. It's been a true pleasure and a true therapy session.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed talking to Amanda. We joked about it feeling like a therapy session, and Loki, it did feel like that. I really enjoyed Amanda's thoughts on the power of networking and some specific strategies that you can use when networking. I loved what she said about being comfortable with herself and just like the power of being comfortable with yourself. I liked the conversation around launching and growing a nonprofit organization. And she really talked about pivoting her career and look at where that pivot got her. So think about, what pivot can you make in your life and what might that pivot bring into your life? And I really loved our conversation about managing the difficulties of life in general because as Amanda said, there's always going to be something, whether you're an entrepreneur, an employee, etc. There's always going to be something. And so related to that point, your homework this week is to make a list of your own personal coping strategies, positive coping mechanisms, ways in which you get back to your home frequency, whether it be dealing with a crisis, maybe you're having a panic attack, maybe you just had a day at work. What are some things you can do to help yourself feel better? Maybe it's a bubble bath, maybe it's a glass of wine, maybe it's calling a friend. Make a list of all the things that help you deal with the tough times, and then put that list somewhere where you can easily get to it when you're having a rough day. I promise you, it will make dealing with life so much easier if you have that ready made list that you could go to when you're having a tough time. Once again, I am Tivi Jones, founder and CEO of the creative studio Hey Awesome Girl. Our social mission is to celebrate and empower women, especially women of color, in digital entrepreneurship. Stay tuned for our next episode and subscribe on all of our channels and follow us. We're Hey Awesome Girls with an S. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. And until then, stay awesome, girl. Hey, awesome you, it's Tivi. So I know as well as anyone that keeping your Instagram marketing consistent can be a struggle. Finding the time to focus on social media strategy and come up with new content ideas when you have a whole business to run ain't easy. This is why I created Thrive by Hey Awesome Girl. It allows you to put your Instagram marketing on autopilot with monthly content that consistently aligns with market trends and evolves with your goals. Our award-winning team will craft timely trends, relatable reels, powerful posts that position your brand for profits. Thrive cuts costs, saves time, and grows your existing Instagram strategy with 3 subscription levels to fit your needs. Get your own marketing team ready to help you build, grow, and scale. Your monthly drops will leave your Instagram feed thriving. Go to heyawesomegirl.com/thrive to start your subscription and get ready to thrive.